Hey everybody, today we are going to talk about top lane. Why are we going to talk about top lane? Because for the past number of years, but really for all of League's existence, top lane has been subjugated to a general apathy towards whether or not it is actually a viable lane that gets to control whether or not the game is won or lost. By that I mean, no one on the live design team seems to ever care whether or not top lane is good or not. To be blunt, top lane is treated as a lane that we can freely use and abuse to make pro play more interesting. The problem is, fundamentally, from the very top to the bottom, it seems consistent that solo queue is worse with a top lane that is useless, but pro play is better with a top lane that is useless. Because Riot seems to value pro play above all else, top lane has been sacrificed as many times as I can think of in order to make pro play more interesting. Top lane is the most popular lane in League of Legends. This is true and has been true for quite some time. Despite that, and I'm going to show you here right now, for the first time in as many years as I can remember, top lane has officially entered being the second most picked lane at low rank. At Iron Plus, meaning every single rank in the game, top lane, for the first time in God knows how long, is no longer the most picked lane. Instead, it is the second most. In addition to that, at a mere, are we here? Yes, at Gold Plus, it has fallen to being the third most picked lane. At Platinum Plus, top lane has fallen to being the fourth most picked lane. In other words, top lane is no longer being picked. It is, for all intents and purposes, despite having the largest player base, it is becoming the second least picked role, second only to support. In fact, many times it has traded at the high ranks at Masters Plus, it has traded with support as to which role is actually being picked less. That could be because top lane is unpopular. It could be because people can't climb with top lane. The problem is top lane is a dying role. In order to talk about how this has happened, it has not happened because of one change. It did not happen because of only the teleport nerf. It did not happen because of only one thing. You might have noticed my list. I have written a great list here. I have tried to be as impartial as possible. I have asked many people, and I have constructed this list over a week now. This is every nerf that I believe has contributed towards top lane's increasing uselessness over the last 4 to 5 years, but primarily over the last 2 to 3 years, which is when top lane's popularity has started to wane so hard. In order to defend every single item on the list, I have prepared a tab showing the nerf, and then I will defend how this nerf has impacted top lane negatively. This video will take a while. In many of my videos, I will try to shorten them. I will try to talk less in order to get people through the video in a shorter amount of time, but this time around, I'm not going to do that. This is partly for the shock value, and it is partly just to show the sheer absurdity. Many of these nerfs, many of these changes, even I forgot happened. These are things that even as I was compiling this list, I thought to myself, they didn't nerf Gargoyle Stone Plate. I don't think that happened. To which I remembered, oh, they actually nerfed it twice, in fact. So, these are changes that have directly, and I mean directly, contributed towards top lane scaling worse, having less impact on the game, and being overall less powerful. Let's go over them now. And I will take as long as I need to go over this. First up, we have precision runes. These runes are things that every top laner takes. For the most part, every top laner takes precision runes if they are a bruiser. Tanks will go into resolve runes, which we go over second. Unfortunately, we have seen nerfs to Triumph, Legend Alacrity, Legend Tenacity, and Legend Bloodline in ways that directly make top lane worse. How? In order to remind people, I will now be going over every single nerf. Starting with Triumph. Triumph got nerfed in patch 12.10 from 10% missing health to 12%, or sorry, from 12% missing health to 10% missing health. Now, you could argue that was done due to the durability update. You could argue that was done due to the higher health pools on champions, but the overall effect was it was nerfed. This rune had not been changed since Season 7, and then in Season 12 was nerfed. If your argument was that it was nerfed because we removed 60% healing debuffs, that would not matter, because in Season 7, 60% healing debuffs did not exist. Triumph was weaker than it had ever been during the 60% healing debuff time period. In addition to that, there was another nerf in Season 13.5, where it was changed to not heal as much if you were at lower HP. Once again, this was a rune that had existed unnerfed since Season 7. For 6 years, this rune had existed. You could argue that this nerf, once again, was equaling out to the durability patch increasing people's health. Unfortunately, this nerf did not have anything to do with the durability patch. This second nerf had absolutely nothing to do with that. Every single top laner who went to Triumph, which is like 90% of them, now scales worse. They now teamfight worse. They now 1v2 worse. They now 1v1 worse. They can now turret dive to less ability. To be blunt, this, although it might not have been a big nerf, the point of the changes that I'm going over is despite none of these nerfs on their own being a very large nerf, they have all contributed. They have all amounted to something. That something is that top lane is useless, that nobody wants to play it anymore. Second up, we have Legend Tenacity. Legend Tenacity has 2 nerfs. Some of you might not even remember the first nerf. Back in Season 10, it was changed. The points per minion kill was reduced to 4 from 5. This made it take longer to stack up. For no other reason than Riot got bored, I guess, they changed it to scale slower. Back in Season 8, they buffed it from 20% to 30% tenacity because Bruisers were struggling. So Season 8, Season 9, Season 10, Season 11, Season 12, for 5 years, it was 30% tenacity. It was nerfed in how quickly it could scale, but it gave 30% tenacity. In Season 13, they decided that was overpowered, actually, and it should be 20% tenacity again. Bruisers don't have an option. And I will go into actually their other option if you're thinking of that one. Some of you might not remember that one. And because of this, every bruiser fighting into a CC comp now has less tenacity. Tenacity being at 30% meant that Riot felt free. They felt okay with buffing things like the duration of Fiddlestick Sphere, buffing the Morgana Q to have less cooldown. They felt okay with reducing Polymorph's cooldown. They did eventually nerf its duration, but they had originally done all these things because Bruisers had 30% tenacity. Now, obviously, it is significantly harder. This change alone has made it significantly harder for a top lane to carry. It is harder to survive through a team fight when you have less tenacity. It is harder to dive successfully when you have less tenacity. It is harder for many champions like Shyvana, like Darius, like anyone in top lane who goes tenacity because they need it. Every one of these champions now has a harder time carrying the game. And again, I'm not saying that this single-handedly ruined top lane. I am saying that all of these combined, and as you just watch this, and I assure you, Legend Alacrity. Now, Legend Alacrity only got the nerf where the points per minion kill was reduced from 4 to 5. However, this does mean that if you go Legend Alacrity on a top laner, you will have less attack speed for the early to mid game. That's just true. That's just right there. Season 7 it was added. In Season 10 it was randomly nerfed. That's it. Legend Bloodline. Now, Legend Bloodline was nerfed multiple times. You might remember that Legend Bloodline was a sparingly useful rune on Bruisers. Not used all the time, but it was sparingly used. In Season 9, it was used frequently on champions like Aurelia, like Olaf, who could get kills, who could farm perfectly, who could do things like that. When the stacks were increased to 20 from 10, but the amount of lifesteal was increased, champions like Olaf, due to his inherent ability to drain tank, champions like Aurelia, because of her Q, were using Legend Bloodline in order to be stronger. This was nerfed in Season 10, making it harder to stack, and then it was nerfed again in Season 10 to have a maximum of 9% lifesteal instead of 12%. Even though this nerf was aimed at AD carries, it did mean that champions like Olaf, champions like Aurelia scaled worse now because they had to go into the other rune choices, which were often considered inferior for them. Olaf doesn't want Legend Alacrity that much. Attack speed is not that useful on him because he already has so much. And so Olaf now scales worse. Even if you argue that these champions are fine, that they still scale well enough, the fact is, the point is, the thing I'm trying to make is that once again, we have a nerf that reduced some top laners' ability to scale. Resolve runes. Second Wind. Second Wind was nerfed because they increased the amount of health, armor, and magic resist that champions had. The base heal was reduced from 6 to 3. Now, while once again, you can argue that the durability patch made that this needed to happen, once again, we've entered a situation where top lane now has to pick more early game runes. They now have to pick more early game options in order to stay alive. Whereas in the past, you could go Doran Shield and Second Wind, and for the most part, you could survive pretty much all ranged champions. Now that alone is no longer good enough. We've seen that many top laners no longer have ranged choices available, or I should say late game choices available against ranged champions. Champions like Jace, like Kennen, like Quinn, who themselves have been buffed because Second Wind Doran Shield existed. They were buffed because of that. They now trample over choices for top lane that we're relying on Second Wind Doran Shield to survive. Up next, we have conditioning. People might not remember conditioning here. Conditioning was nerfed. I'm not even talking about this one, back in Season 10. So in Season 7, it was added. In Season 9, it was buffed. In Season 10, it was then nerfed, so the bonus resistance time was increased to 12 minutes from 10. While you might argue, once again, that this was done because of the low ranks, because their games tend to go on longer, the problem is, at the high ranks, conditioning has, outside of some uses on K'Sante, conditioning has ceased to be a relevant choice ever again. This means that the ability for top laners to pick a scaling option into easier lanes went away, meaning that top laners are once again forced into non-scaling options like Second Wind just to try to win lane, because 12 minutes ended up just being that break point. It just was too long to not have a rune choice. Now, in the durability update, it was nerfed, and then in Season 12, it unfortunately was nerfed again. You might not remember that one either. So Season 10, it was nerfed. Now, I'm going to exclude this one because this was a durability update, so I'll say fair is fair. But then in Season 12, it was nerfed again. So once again, we have a late game scaling option, an option that was there for Bruisers to scale better. And now they can't have that option because effectively, Season 10 removed it from the high rank, and Season 12 basically removed it from most champions in the game. Unflinching. This is the second option. You might be thinking, well, if Legend Tenacity was nerfed, you still have Unflinching, right? Unfortunately, Unflinching was nerfed back in Season 12. It was reduced, instead of 10 to 30% tenacity and slow resist, it was nerfed to 5 to 25% tenacity and slow resist. At max HP, that literally reduced the amount of tenacity and slow resist you had by half. To be clear to everybody, it does count the tenacity and slow resist from when you are hit, not after you are hit. So this means if a Lux roots you at full HP, you do not get the tenacity as if you were half HP afterwards. This means effectively this does nothing if you were full health comboed. Now if you say to yourself, well, if you're full health comboed, blah, 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 the point is that Unflinching went from a decent choice for tenacity and slow resist to, well, well, shoot, because the other Tenacity choice got nerfed really hard too. So you can go with the nerf choice for Tenacity or the other nerfed choice for Tenacity. So Unflinching existed for 2 years in this state. Legend Tenacity existed for 5 years in that state. Then randomly in Season 12, they were decided, they were optioned into being nerfed for no other reason than Riot just got bored, I guess. Up next, we have Overgrowth. Now, Overgrowth went through many different iterations, but I would consider the current version of Overgrowth to still be a nerfed version of it. What do I mean by that? Overgrowth was added in Season 8. Then, unfortunately, it was added in Season 7. Then in Season 8, it was nerfed really hard. Instead of you getting 0.2% max HP, it was changed to 3 flat. Now, while it only did exist for 1 year in this state, it still did exist for 1 year in this state, a state where it had scaling percent max HP increase. This meant that tanks and bruisers had an option where they could slot a rune choice in for a very, very high scaling rune choice, much like Gathering Storm, but for health pools. Unfortunately, this was removed, and then it was eventually buffed up later in Season 9, but we see today that it's often not worth the choice, and people will have to opt into Unflinching just because it does something, which doesn't seem like a great option. You have to go the nerfed rune because the other rune got nerfed even harder. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to get across in a lot of these changes too. You're going with the nerfed option because the other option was nerfed even harder. And that's a lot of what Bruisers feel like right now. Do I go with the crappy option or the crappier option? Well, I'll go with the crappy option, and then Riot says, oh, well, look, they're going with the crappy option. That must mean it's good. It's not good. It just means all the other options are even worse. Bone plating. Now, while we could argue, and I do agree that bone plating was probably nerfed, not just for bruisers, not just for top laners, not just for tanks, but for everybody. The point is, the class, the lane that uses it the most was top lane. While it could be used bot, while it could be used mid, it was most often used in top lane on average. And when we look at these nerfs, after the durability update, its cooldown was increased to 55 from 45. Now that was done for pro play bloodiness, to make pro play have more kills, to make defensive play even harder. So in Season 8, it was added. In Season 9, it was buffed a little bit. Then in Season 12, it became overpowered. Okay, I guess. So another option in order to play safe top lane, another option was nerfed. Talking about playing safe in top lane and those options being nerfed, up next we now have Biscuit. Biscuit has been nerfed so many times and so hard that I don't really think that I need to spend that much time on this thing here. I think everybody will remember it. It was nerfed from 15% missing HP to 10%. It was nerfed to not sell for 30 gold, but instead to sell for 5 gold. Then it was nerfed again to have the mana nerfed from 50 total mana to 40 total mana. Back in Season 12, again, which I find surprising. Season 12 seems to be when Riot nerfed and hunted down every option to try to play safe in top lane, seemed to be getting hunted down and massacred by Riot. They found them in the woods, they rode on their horse, they chased after them, and they shot every option to play safe in top lane with a bow, which meant that playing late game champions in top lane became a crapshoot. And it meant that trying to survive and scale in top lane became unreliable, which meant that top laners had to play earlier and earlier and earlier game picks, which means that top lane scales worse and worse and worse. And that's something I want to get across with these nerfs, because these set of nerfs are really going into that fact. You have to consider, here for a second, if everyone can play safe, then you'll choose a late game option, correct? I think everyone would agree with that. If you could get through bot lane, guaranteed that you could reach late game, then you will pick the hardest scaling option to have the most impact. In top lane, the opposite is true. You can no longer get through the lane in a safe way. Okay? So the problem by hunting down and eliminating all these options is we are seeing very little late game picks actually ever being picked in top lane anymore. And instead, we are seeing lane bully, lane bully, lane bully, lane bully, lane bully. Because top lane tends to be two lane bullies, that means that by the time they enter team fights, both of them scale worse and are weaker than if they were actually trying to play to scale and to reach late game. Does everybody get that? Okay. So this plays into why we're seeing so many safe picks, so many picks that don't rely on gold, so many picks like that. Okay. Time Warp Tonic, and this of course plays off the Biscuit nerf. This was Time Warp Tonic and Biscuit were both being nerfed back to back to back. Yeah. The bonus movement speed was reduced from 4% to 2% in 12.14. And another one of, and I'm not, you guys think I'm joking, but you keep seeing that Riot in Season 12 took a big issue with top lane having any ability to play safe, having any ability to scale. They seem to have this big issue with it. Like, Season 12 happened, and Riot just, their eyes just started shooting red, and they were like, that man, why is he not playing entirely for the laning phase? Why must he's trying to scale in top lane? And they just stabbed and stabbed and stabbed and stabbed over and over and destroyed top lane. So, Season 8, it was added. And then in Season 12, it was decided it was massively overpowered and had to be obliterated. Just to be clear, by the way, the bonus movement speed being nerfed meant that melee options who went with Biscuit, such as Jax, now had a significantly harder time dealing with ranged champions because they couldn't guarantee that they had enough movement speed to run them down in the laning phase. Because they couldn't go with choices like Time Warp Tonic Biscuit because other champions couldn't go with things like Second Wind. This meant that ranged champions who scale worse, but obviously win the lane harder, they became significantly more consistent and were able to win the lane a lot more and drive the lane more into an early game and drive the lane into less interesting. Conqueror. Now, while, okay, I do agree, people can argue that Conqueror was overpowered, underpowered, whatever. If there's anything that we can understand from the arena mode, it's that without Conqueror, boy, there are a lot of Bruisers that are not good anymore. We're seeing Darius, we see Mord, and don't mention Paladin Mord, it's a meme, it's no good at all. We see these champions that, let's be blunt, let's just say it like it is, these champions basically do no damage early game without Conqueror. To be blunt, the reason Conqueror is so strong is so that these Bruiser champions, these juggernauts, can actually beat the crap out of people early game and not just be stat checked by their ranged counterparts. So the problem is, Riot has balanced Bruisers on Conqueror. They did. They balanced Bruisers on Conqueror. We could all agree on that. We all know that that's true. Okay? So every time Riot nerfed Conqueror, they made Bruisers weaker. And we can see Season 10. So when was the last nerf before Season 10? Okay. So Season 9, it got updated. Season 10, then it got nerfed. Then Season 10, it got nerfed. Then Season 11, it got nerfed. Since Season 11, it got nerfed. Boy, there does seem to be a correlation between Riot repeatedly nerfing Conqueror and top lane's popularity waning, and Bruisers in top lane getting picked less, and ranged bullies in top lane going whoop. Okay, up next we have Grasp the Undying. Grasp the Undying, you might say, but it did get nerfed. Unfortunately, during the durability update, it was nerfed. Now, I'm not even counting that one. During the durability update, people did get more health. They did get more health baseline. So it stood to reason that, let's be fair, if everyone has more health, particularly in the early game, then Grasp and Dying should probably have less healing and damage. That's fine. Unfortunately, then for some reason in Season 13, in this season, Riot decided, boy, after healing for 2% of your health, for 2% of your health for how many years? 7 years? For healing for 2% of your health for 7 years, it has now become an issue. And we need to nerf the healing to 1.2. And after dealing 4% health damage for 7 years, 3.5. Best they can do, 3.5. So whether or not you want to admit it, whether or not you want to, in your soul, accept it, whether or not you want to open your heart to top lane and accept it inside of you, Grasp and Dying was randomly nerfed for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Because a top laner woke up, got hit by a Grasp and Dying Scion, and after the rune working the same way for 7 years, today he woke up upset. What was he upset about? I don't know. I would like to understand from a writer's perspective what they were so mad that day. Why that day? Why after 7 years did you wake up and decide to yourself, man, fuck Grasp the Undying? Aftershock, effective removal, in quotes. Why would I say effective removal? Because back in Season 9, and I am listing this, Aftershock was effectively removed from its ability to be chosen top lane by nerfing it really, 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 really hard in the early game. Aftershock ceased to be an effective choice for top laners after this nerf. It was only for junglers and sometimes support from now on. So effectively, tank top laners had their choices reduced from Aftershock and Grasp and Dying to only Grasp and Dying, and also now Grasp and Dying got nerfed. So when I talk about they still go Grasp and Dying, so it must be good, I'm saying, well, they're only going Grasp and Dying because their other choice was literally removed when they reworked it. So, unfortunately, this plays into exactly what I keep talking about. Glacial Augment, effective removal. Now, Glacial Augment is still in the game, but let's be blunt, it is a different rune. If you remember, what is this thing called? Glacial Augment used to be a 40 to 50% slow. It was then buffed to a 45 to 50% slow, and then it was removed back in Season 11 and changed into what it is now. This was effectively a removal. There were champions that did go Glacial Augment in order to beat ranged champions. There were champions that did that. We saw that picked on champions like Jack sometimes. We saw that on Illaoi. And they did go Glacial Augment, and they did use it to beat down ranged champions. So once again, we had another option. Another choice for top laners was removed. So Aftershock has been removed. Glacial Augment has been removed. Top laners then decide mostly to choose Conquer and Grasp and Dying, to which Riot then nerfs those several times. So, do you understand the issue here? I hope I'm trying to make this clear, because it was not one thing. I assure you, it has never been one problem that has made top lane this way. It has been years and years and years and years of treating top lane as an expendable source of free anger management. That anytime you get mad, you could go nerf something out of top lane, and well, I mean, if you nerf one item, it doesn't kill the lane. If you nerf one keystone, it doesn't kill the lane. If you nerf one rune, it doesn't kill the lane. If you nerf a champion, it doesn't kill the lane. But what I'm trying to say here is all of this, and I keep repeating this because I will continue to say it every time I go over this, all these changes have added together, and they have made top lane go from the most played role to almost the least played role. Summoner spells. Teleport. Do I really need to go over teleport? Do I have to? I'm not going to, but let's be blunt here, okay? With the buffs to plate gold, teleporting bot lane, even at the 10-minute mark that they've given it now they let you teleport bot lane at 10 minutes. Even then, I would argue is often just not worth it, because teleporting bot lane and getting a kill or even two to help your team, with turret plates being buffed so much, you can often find yourself in a position where you are now weaker. Kill gold, kill XP has been reduced. Plate gold has been buffed. Because of these things, leaving top lane, and this is an issue with top lane, leaving your lane and letting your opponent get these things will cause you to lose the game. You can teleport bot lane and you can get your ADC an assist or even a kill. You don't guarantee that your AD carry can carry, that's on them. But meantime, you've allowed their top laner to free farm and get fed. And the problem is some characters can actually win by being fed in top lane. Top lane does not always get fed, and I'm not saying that top lane can win the game while fed. I'm just saying that all these nerfs to teleport and now restricting it to 10 minutes, I'm just saying this little bone that they've thrown to top lane. Hey guys, look, here's a teleport. Have at it, right? Like, it just, at 10 minutes, it can often be too late to even change the game. And it can literally just be at the point where your only hope of potentially carrying is to keep your opponent from getting fed, and teleporting bot lane lets them get fed. 10 minutes, your bot lane could be 0-7. You think 2 kills is going to change the game? You teleport bot lane, you get your bot lane 2 kills, that changes the game? No, actually. And that's even if you can get 2 kills. If you teleport bot lane and you just help prevent a dive, great, you've helped prevented a dive, and now their top laner is ahead of you. Now you have 3 losing lanes. Ghost. Recently, this one just happened. This literally just happened. The duration was increased to 15 from 10, but the duration was no longer increased upon scoring a takedown. Now, while you could argue whether or not this was a buff or a nerf, Riot clearly intended. Their intent with this change was to be a nerf. They intended that. They did not care that it nerfed top laners. They did not care about that. They just didn't want to nerf it on ranged champions. They could very easily have just nerfed it on ranged champions. Instead of 24 to 48% movement speed, ranged champions get 16 to 30%. Ta-da! It's now significantly weaker on ranged champions. Top laners haven't been affected. But they didn't do that, did they? They did not care. They did not in any way give any shits in any way about how this impacted top lane. Darius can snowball worse? They don't care. Olaf can snowball worse? They don't care. They truly could not give a single shit. They could not give the tiniest little fuck as to how top lane reacted to this change. They were expendable. Top lane was just a civilian in front of the tank that is Riot's balance. Top lane said, hey man, I don't think it's cool if you're... Up next, we have Doran Shield. I had to categorize this. I had so many nerfs for items, from Bruiser items, and so many removal of Bruiser items, that I literally had to categorize it in only early game nerfs on Bruisers. Up first, we have Doran Shield. Doran Shield health regen was nerfed from 6 to 4. Now, to be clear, it was in that way for 3 years. For 3 years, Doran Shield worked the way that it worked. Unfortunately, and this was almost a full year after the durability update, so don't say, oh, this is because of the durability update. It wasn't. This was a full year afterwards. Okay? I just want to keep people's perspective on this one, okay? Riot wanted pro play to be bloody. And what did they say? Once again, top laner, over here. Hey man, I know you want pro play to be bloodier, but could you maybe do that in a way that doesn't screw over top laners? We really need this in order to try to... Riot doesn't care. Riot doesn't give a shit. Refillable potions. Oh, you know what joke is coming. Hey, Riot, we teleport back to lane and we use the refillable potions to try to survive against ranged champions. Please don't just do this because you want pro play to be bloodier. We want... Phage. No longer a component. Now, this one, I struggled on whether or not I wanted to list it, but I felt in the end that it was important enough to list. Phage had historically been attempted to be an early game bruiser item. Okay? Now, the problem is, it was not always a good bruiser item, but they had finally made it a good bruiser item for the early game, particularly to survive against ranged characters. It built into Divine Sunder, Goredrinker, and Steric's Gauge. It gave 15 attack damage, 200 HP, and whenever you dealt physical damage, you healed for 2% of your health over 6 seconds. It was a good way to trade with other champions, it was a good way to keep your health up, and it was overall a very good item for top laners to get through the laning phase. Randomly as fuck, Riot decided in Season 12, always Season 12, that no, you can't have a good early game item to survive. You're not allowed to. Season 12 is when Riot said, no, you're not allowed to survive the laning phase against tough laning phase champions. No. Always Season 12 with them. Always Season 12 with them. And it was removed as a build component from Divine Sunder and Goredrinker. So these two items now had weaker item builds. They now had a more difficult time building into them. You can argue whether or not it was needed. I don't care. You can argue that. That's fine. Argue it all you want. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. The blunt fact of the matter is Riot intended it to be a nerf, and it was a nerf. I might have dislocated something in my hand on that one. Yeah. Triple bead start. Now this one is something that I did not struggle to list. Who is the highest health regen in the game? If you're not stupid, you're going to answer Bruisers, right? Everyone's going to answer Bruisers. Of course you are. Of course you are. Because you're not an idiot. You know Bruisers have the highest base health regen in the game. So who did triple bead start? Bruisers, obviously. Why would anyone else do it? It increases your base health regen, so obviously Bruisers are going to go it, right? We all understand that, right? So you go triple bead. That's 450 gold in health regen, then 50 extra gold. This allows you to try to survive against ranged champions who harass you nonstop. What did Riot decide? In season 12? In season 12, I can't do it again because my hand actually hurt after that one. I'm not going to lie to you. In Season 12, a writer woke up one day. His girlfriend had just left him. He went to go watch his favorite show, Westworld, and he realized this show sucks. Why did I try to watch it again? There was only one option available to him. He Googled, how do I lane top lane against ranged champions? He took out his notepad. Every single suggestion anyone had to try to survive ranged top laners, he wrote down. He called it the Death Note. Every single strategy, every single one of them that anyone had to survive against ranged champions, it went in the Death Note. And Season 12, they obliterated all of top lane's ability to survive, to play safe, to not die. They meticulously, in the sort of autistic rage that only someone who can actually track information this well could accomplish in that sort of way. They actually killed, I promise you, this will continue. They destroyed everything, every ability, every option to try to stay alive in top lane. Raptors cloak removal. Raptors cloak was an item. Was. What did it do? Well, it wasn't that big a deal. It built out of a rejuve bead. It had 30 armor, and it gave you movement speed when you were near a turret. Was it popular? Not really. Was it built? Sparingly. What did it do? We did a triple bead start. You could go into Raptor's cloak. There's more health regen, there's some armor, there's some movement speed. Good way to survive against ranged champions. Good way to try to keep your health bar alive, avoid dives. Good way to mitigate damage. Honestly, not a bad item. Removed from the game. Was it popular? Not really. Was it picked? Oh, of course it was. On champions like Darius and champions like Garen, they would go early game Raptor's cloak into difficult matchups to try to stay alive. So it was removed. This isn't a big deal, of course. Of all the things here, is this the most important? Probably not. Probably couldn't have not even made the list. But I remembered. Oh, I remembered. I remembered the day it was removed. I remember thinking to myself, boy, that was useful. That helped me not survive. For a mere 900 gold, I got good health regen, I got armor, and I got movement speed. That was a good item. That was an item that I liked. I liked going Raptor's cloak. Did it screw over the game balance? No. And that's probably why they removed it. And that's probably why they didn't bring it back. Static Shiv, that screws over the game's balance. They brought it back. Raptor's cloak, it helped you not die. Had to go. Up next, Specters cowl nerfs. You're thinking to yourself, no, they didn't nerf Specters cowl. That item sucks. They didn't nerf it. It's terrible. Why would they have nerfed it? Why would they have nerfed Specters cowl? You're bullshitting me, Hashinshin. They didn't. They didn't nerf it. Sure, maybe 7 years ago, maybe. But not recently. There's no way. Hashinshin, there's no way. They didn't nerf Specters cowl. They didn't. They didn't. They didn't. They wouldn't. Why would they? They didn't. I'm gonna let you sit on that for 1 second. I'm just gonna go stretch. Did they? Just tell me. Do you remember? Did they? Did they recently? And for what reason would they have done it? You were expecting a grand entrance, weren't you? But you thought about it. You thought about it a lot, didn't you? You thought about it. When? Season 10. For literally no reason. In Season 10, they made Specters cowl 50 more gold. Not because the items got more expensive. They just made the combined cost higher. They didn't address the stats. They didn't change anything about the item. Nothing about this item changed even slightly. But Adaptive Helm got removed and Specters cowl went up 50 gold. Why? Literally, why? Could someone at Riot answer me this? Why? What did it do to you? It was just an item. What pissed you off this day? What happened in your life? Did your favorite bartender not come into work? Did the cute barista quit and you didn't see her that morning? What happened? What happened? Did your friends find another friend and you were the fifth friend and you weren't invited out to play the Deep Rock Galactic? I truly don't know. Did prices go up? Is this inflation? Are we paying for inflation on Specter's cowl? This is one of the weakest items in the game. Why did it get nerfed? It makes no sense. Hexdrinker. Once again, a complicated item. An item, and I'm going to say it this way. If your argument is about to be, yes, Hexdrinker was nerfed, but it's still strong, then you just said, yes, Hexdrinker was nerfed. Okay, end of discussion. We're done here. It was nerfed. It is now weaker. Many items could be nerfed and still be built. If Lord Dominic's went down by 5 gold, it would still be built. If Lord Dominic's went down by 10 gold, it would still be built. How do we know that? Because it has gained 10 damage over the last year. If it went down by 10 damage, if Lord Dominic went down by 10 damage, it would still be built. If it went down by 15 damage, it would still be built. If it went down by 20 damage, I guarantee you it would still be built. Much more rarely, but yes, it would still be built. Hexdrinker is the same way. Is it still built? Well, yeah. As often as it used to be? Well, no. There's your answer right there. Ta-da. In season 5, it has Let's balance change. Then in season 10, it was overpowered. Then in season 12, they nerfed it on ranged champions and buffed it on melee a little bit. Then in season 13, it was overpowered. Who knew? Okay. Iron Spike Whip. People forget this one. People forget how much Iron Spike Whip has been nerfed. We're going to have to go down because, oh boy, it got nerfed so much. So in season 11, they nerfed it. It no longer dealt double damage to minions and monsters below 50% health. You have to remember, Iron Spike Whip dealt double damage if the minion or monster was below half. This helped you last hit, and this allowed a lot of different champions to wave clear more consistently. Now, Riot didn't like that because it was used mid lane. People begrudgingly said, okay, I guess. Fine. Sure. Screw it. They weren't willing to argue with Riot. It was like, okay, fine. I guess Talon shouldn't wave clear, I guess. I don't know. Then in season 11, again, its combined cost was reduced by 100. Yay! And its cooldown went up by 5 to 20 seconds. Yay! In season 11, later on, it was then changed to base AD from total AD. To be clear to everybody watching this video, there is almost mathematically no way that it was buffed with this change at all by anyone at all. Literally, I shit you not, by just building the Iron Spike Whip, the vast majority of champions already had it be a damage nerf. Because you can't have not built damage and use Iron Spike Whip, because you have to build the Iron Spike Whip to use it with 30 damage. And when you do that, and when you account for runes, it was nerfed. So Iron Spike Whip, let's put it this way. Goredrinker went from having 2 extremely good items building into it, Whip and Phage, to having none, because Phage has been nerfed into the ground, where most people prefer not even to try to go it anymore, and Phage literally got removed from its build components. So, yeah, once again, that's a weaker laning phase. No longer able to jungle for gold and XP. Now, this is one that I think a lot of people have forgotten. What class of champions has the most ways to jungle that don't go in the jungle? I'll give you a hint. It's Bruisers. Da-da-da! Now, Bruisers in this is also Bruisers, Fighters, Divers, Juggernauts, etc. That entire thing. Now, you're saying to yourself, that's... What are you talking about? You're an idiot. Bruisers don't jungle better than anyone else. You're stupid. Oh, but they do. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Darius's bleed, his passive, deals 300% damage against monsters. Garen's Juggernaut. Dun 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 dun. Deals 150% damage against monsters. Oh, I will, to prove my point, I will go on here for a while, because some of you don't actually understand how many damage modifiers Bruisers have against the jungle that enabled them to clear jungle and to take extra camps and to scale better. Top laners got more gold because they could very, very easily and effectively clear the jungle. That's right, Decimating Smash deals 100% damage against monsters. Aatrox's Q. Oops. We gotta right in here because it's funny. Aatrox's Q. Despite having its bonus damage removed against monsters, it deals double knockup to monsters. Meaning, yes, it's easy to stunlock monsters and take less damage from them and out-heal their damage. Well, not anymore, but it was easy to out-heal their damage and pick up free monster camps. I'll stop here because you're probably getting the point. Bruisers cleared the jungle very well. Better than any other class of champion. So what did Riot do? During the jungle update recently, they made it, all large monster gold given to non-junglers has been reduced by 15 gold. All large monster experience given to non-junglers has been reduced by 15 experience. In addition to that, they made the jungle monsters deal significantly more damage and made it so the jungle now just heals junglers on every single camp. So top laners trying to clear the jungle for extra gold now take more damage to get less gold to get less experience. No matter how you slice it, that is a nerf to top lane. That makes top lane less capable of carrying because they can't do camps as easily anymore to pick up gold. Now let's look at their mythic item nerfs. Goredrinker. Do I even need to mention Goredrinker? I hope I don't. I hope I don't need to, but I will just for the sake of argument here. Back in Season 11, removed unique passive Spite. No longer grants 0 to 15% of your AD as bonus AD. This was removed. Since Season 11, Goredrinker has never been an effective item again. Additionally, they gave it Omnivamp. Now, here's the problem with Omnivamp. Can I find the... Can I find like a thing on Omnivamp? Here we go. Omnivamp is reduced to 33% effectiveness for area damage or damage dealt by pets. Do you know, off the top of your hand, potentially, what class primarily deals damage by abilities that are mostly AoE? Da-na-na-na, da-na-na, da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na. Bruisers, obviously. Like, we all know that, right? Like, it's... Shocker! Big surprise! Whoopee! Garen does damage with Judgment, AoE. Aatrox does damage with Q, AoE. Riven does damage with her Q and her W stun and her, I guess, some auto attacks. Yeah, sure, auto attacks and AoE. Jeez, I mean... The few bruisers that don't AoE abuse Omnivamp, sure. Camille, Irelia, who's the other one? I'll just say that, right? But I mean, you look at Ilaoi, Q, AoE, Tentacles, AoE, Mord's Q, AoE. Although if you single target it, it does count as single target, which is why Riftmaker was almost good enough for Mord to continue to use it. Almost. Not quite, though. Point of the story, point I'm trying to make here is Riot seemed to think that, I think I dropped Goredrinker on accident. I accidentally closed the Goredrinker window. Riot seemed to think that Goredrinker gaining Omnivamp was some huge buff that definitely made up for it. And I don't think they literally understand their own game. I think they literally don't get their own game. And I don't think they realize that Omnivamp, I mean, to put this into perspective for everyone, to really hammer this home, if Set hit a 5-man W and his W dealt 2,000 damage to all 5 people, boom, 2,000, boom, 2,000, boom, 2,000, boom, 2,000, boom, 2,000. Insane. He would heal to full. Well, no, he wouldn't, would he? He would heal for 333. Really let that sink in. Really, really just savor that number. If he hit a 5-man W for 10,000 damage because he hit all 5 of them for 2,000, he would heal for 333. Stridebreaker. Now, do I need to mention Stridebreaker? I hope I don't, but once again, I'm going to have to because I don't know how many of you are in complete denial. In Season 11, Stridebreaker was reworked. Now, it is fair that it got reworked. I agree. The rework was a good idea. The rework when they removed the dash... Which one was that? In Season 11, when they removed the dash, well, whenever they did that, was that this one? Yeah, this one. Sorry, I need to remember it. Back in Season 11, when they removed the dash, that was a good decision. That was a good choice. That was a good idea. Unfortunately, it was then nerfed really goddamn hard because of champions like Nocturne, which, let's be blunt, shouldn't have surprised anybody. Nobody should have been surprised by that one. Not one person should have went, the person who uses Stridebreaker really well and doesn't need the dash might do better when it doesn't have a dash and gets buffed for it. Wow, I'm shocked. Wow, that's insane. I didn't see. Not one person in the entire game should ever have been surprised by that. Only the dumbest motherfuckers could have been surprised by that. That is why Riot was surprised by that. So they had to nerf it. But they nerfed it so hard that they basically had to go back and buff every single bruiser who used it. And we've seen nothing but Darius buffs and Garen buffs since. So I do agree. It should have been nerfed originally. But the item as it exists now is so mediocre. Even after its buffs, it's so... It's so... 60 damage is good. 20 ability haste is good. 20 attack speed is okay. 300 health is not a lot. 3,300 gold is a lot. A mere 175% base AD on hit, so less than a single Trinity proc. A 40% slow. A mythic passive of only 2% movement speed. That's all it does, 2% movement speed. Movement speed, which a lot of bruisers don't even really need because they have so many gap closers. You think Aurelia needs movement speed? You think Aatrox needs movement speed? Who needs it? Darius and Garen? Except then when Darius and Garen can move quickly, Riot fucking breaks the nerf Dead Man's Plate hammer glass thing. Then somehow Dead Man's Plate gets nerfed again. Dead Man's Plate sitting there. They haven't done anything bad in its life. Dead Man's Plate never did anything wrong. It's sitting there. It's minding its business. No one cares about it. It's at the beach. It's having a good time. It's on vacation. And in its eye, you see the reflection. A rioter is jumping out of a plane. He has a gun. He is shooting Dead Man's Plate for no reason. Again. It is 300. Dead Man's Plate is down to 300 health, people. It needs help. Please. Someone start a charity. We will go over Dead Man's Plate later. Divine Sunderer. Once again, I will agree. Divine Sunderer did need to be nerfed. However, a nerf is a nerf. Can we agree on that? If top lane gets weaker, then top lane gets weaker. Right? Can we all agree on that? It's if top lane gets weaker, then top lane gets weaker. If Divine Sunderer is weaker, then top lane is weaker. Okay? So there's no argument here, in my opinion. If top lane gets weaker, then top lane gets weaker. Yes, okay, fine. Is Divine Sunderer still built? Yes. Is it still good? Yes. Is it weaker? Yes. Once again, if Lord Dominic's Regard went down 10 damage, it would be where it was last year. If it went down another 10 damage and was fairly balanced at a meager 15 damage, would it be at 15? If it was balanced down there at 15 damage, would people still build it? Yes. Would it be too weak? Probably. Probably not. But people would still build it. Do you understand my point? When you nerf an item that's the only choice for a class, a sub-spec of champions, right? They are weaker. Is Jax weak? Not really. But did nerfing Divine Sunderer make him weaker? Yes. Did it make Camille weaker? Yes. Did it make all the champions who made it and built it weaker? Yes. Do you get the problem here? You can't say top lane isn't getting weaker and then look at all the examples of it getting weaker and say those don't count. Because they do count. Obviously, they do. We're not tracking a feels metric. We're not camping how it feels. I know we buff 80 carries if they feel bad, but this is the reality of the situation. Top lane has been getting all its mythics nerfed into the ground. Well, that's not true. What about Sunfire was effectively removed from the game. The old Sunfire, which gave 35 armor, 35 magic resist, 450 health, 5% tenacity, 5% slow resist, 50 bonus HP on the mythic passive, scaling magic AoE damage that doubled if you sat next to people. That got removed from the game. It got replaced with jack shit. Get it? Because it got replaced by jack shit, right? All right. Mentioning jack shit. You know what tanks have to build that feels good? Jack shit. It's okay. They'll just continue to buff tanks until they feel better. Jack shit. So, I mean, do we need to go over this one? Do we actually have to? Do some of you think to yourself, well, I mean, it doesn't count because you actually hacker him and, well, it doesn't. Yeah, let's be real. People that build jack shit feel like they built jack shit. I will continue to make this joke because it's true. Because this item is jack shit. Build this item and you'll know what I mean. Sunfire's sitting there like, oh God, where am I going to put all this survivability? Jack Show's like, I have less armor and I have less magic resist. I also have less health. I don't really do any damage either. My mythic passive gives me 5 armor and magic resist. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Has anyone ever thought to themselves, oh man, building jack shit made me feel so good. God, I love this item. Eclipse. Okay, so once again, Is Eclipse good now? Yes. I will still agree Eclipse is good. We could all agree on that one, okay? The problem is, did it get nerfed? Yes. Is it still built? Well, yeah. Eclipse had its stats, geez, every time it got even decent, it got nerfed. I mean, there's too many to list. It got nerfed here, it got nerfed here. They finally reworked it here. Blunt fact of the matter is, it did. It got nerfed all the time, and it's weaker. It's obviously weaker. It's still good, obviously, but much like Divine Sunderer, if top lane items get weaker, then it gets weaker, right? Can we all agree on that? Like, that's just how it works. It doesn't, like, the thing is, no matter what you do, top lane will have a 50% win rate, because one top laner will always win the game. You can never end up in a situation where both top laners lose. But we have ended up in a situation where it feels like both top laners are losing. And that's because top lane's power just keeps going. Every time a rider goes to the supermarket and their favorite cereal isn't there, they go, "No, my Lucky Charms! Bring me a list of viable Bruiser mythics. I'll teach them." What's the next Bruiser mythic removed or nerfed? Radiant Virtue. This one got, well, I mean, let's be blunt, effectively removed. What happened to Radiant Virtue? Riot woke up one morning and they said to themselves, Radiant Virtue is a support item now. And every top laner said, what? And they said, it's a support item. It's a support item now. In 13.10, it's a support item. It's existed in the game for 10 patches, which is 5 months. And now it's a support item. You should have given me my Lucky Charms. And Radiant Virtue got nerfed. It had its gold adjusted downward, its health adjusted downward, its ability haste adjusted downward, its heal adjusted downward, the heal per tick adjusted downward, the mythic passive adjusted downward. So it could be a support item. Okay. Top lane item nerfs. This one will take a while. Death's Dance. Do we need to argue this? Once again, say it with me. Did it get nerfed? Yes. Then it got weaker? Yes. Is it still built? Probably. But it got weaker? Yes. If top lane's power level is here, top lane is a 50% win rate. If top lane's power level is here, it is a 50% win rate. If top lane's power level is here, it has a 50% win rate. If top lane got kicked off the fucking team and both teams played a 4v4, the goddamn spectator would still have a 50% win rate. Everybody get it? It went from 175% bonus AD healing to 140% bonus AD healing to 50% bonus AD healing. Less, I count it, less than a third of how much it used to heal. Less than a third. Less than a third. Okay. Sterig's Gauge. Let's go over Sterig's Gauge. Do we really need to go over Sterig's Gauge? I'll sing it a song. I'm running out of ways to make this funny. Let's try this one. There once was an item that healed your champion and gave you a big shield with lots of damage. Then a rider didn't get his Lucky Charms and they fucking stabbed it to death. They stabbed it to death. They stabbed it to death. It was a good item, then it got stabbed to death. It's not very good. They keep buffing it, but ask yourself, have you seen it lately? So it just got buffed again. So how many times have they buffed it since they butchered it into the goddamn ground? Since they slaughtered it? Since they brought it out back and said, it's okay, good buddy. It's season 12. All survivability for top laners must go. Season 12 was like a sale on top laners. All their items get 50% off. Okay. Spirit Visage. Wow. Spirit Visage has 60 magic resist. That's a lot. 60 magic resist now. And here's me being like, well, hold on. Wait a minute. Oh, man. Remember it used to have 70? It's evolving, but backwards. So Spirit Visage. Remember when people actually used to build this item? Spirit Visage used to give you 30% more healing. All healing was increased by 30%. 450 health, 55%, or say 55 magic resist, 10% cooldown reduction, 100% health regen. Used to give even 200% health regen with 60 magic resist. You say to yourself, great item, good item, love it, got it. Ryan said, yeah, but what if it gave less magic resist and increased your shielding? And everyone's like, 40 magic resist doesn't do a lot. 40, that's it? That's the best you can do? 40? Riot's like, take it or leave it. Top laner's like, I guess we'll leave it. I guess we won't build it. And Riot said, you'll build it. You'll build it after you see the Force of Nature update. Deadman's. It's a little bit obvious. The joke I'm about to make is a little bit obvious. Ryan sure did make it a dead item. So anyway, the health was 475, and Riot said more, and then it got reduced to 400, and Riot said more, and then it got reduced to 300, and then Riot realized they don't really understand how math works. So anyway, it got fucking murdered. That's it. That's the gist of this story. Remember how much did it used to give? How much did it originally? What was it? 600. 600 with 55 armor. Imagine an item like that. Imagine a world where you can get 600 health with 55 armor. Oh my god. And we are like 8 years of power creep past this. And this would still be the best fucking item in this game. But that's okay. We're only going to compare it to recent Deadmans. Recently, when it became a Deadman. Oh, I kill myself. It's okay. It hurts to laugh. Anyway, they did this stupid rework where they thought it was going to be good and it wasn't. Then they increased its armor because they were like, trust us, guys, trust us. It's good now. It wasn't. Then Riot was like, fuck it. We gave it 5 armor. What more could we do? We did everything we wanted, guys. We did it all. We're done. We gave it 5 armor. There's literally nothing else we could have done. That was it. We're gonna go back to buffing fucking Lord Dominic's regards a few more times. Maybe. Force of Nature. Let's do this in song. There once was an item called Force of Nature, and it gave flat magic damage reduction because there was a lot of magic pen and MR was kind of useless. So Riot buffed the magic pen, and then they removed Force of Nature by making it magic resist, even though there was a lot more magic pen, and now it kinda sucks. But then they nerfed it even harder because for some reason they also made it take more stacks to build. And then they nerfed its magic resist for some reason again anyway. And then they probably pissed on you for building it. And if you build it, you might actually get your account banned. That's the story of force of nature. Okay. Chempunk Chainsword I was debating whether or not to add. Because reasonably, they buffed Chempunk Chainsword, then they nerfed it. But let's be blunt here. Let's be blunt. Despite its raw item efficiency at 160% gold efficient, you need to remember that ability haste is massively overvalued. I think it's something like ability haste is worth like 400 gold per ability haste because of Kindle Gem. So the question I have to ask is, do you consider 25 ability haste worth 1,000 gold? Probably not. You probably don't consider that one to be true. You probably wouldn't think that one's fair. With that in mind, Chempunk Chainsword did get nerfed. Its gold cost went from 2,600 to 2,800. Was that fair? Probably. Does anyone build it? Not really. Everyone just goes Mortal Reminder. Let's do that in song form again, because I'm literally going insane. There are 2 items with damage and healing debuffs, and one also gives armor pen and crit and then multiplies your damage 2 different ways, and the other gives 250 HP. Do. Ravenous Hydra. Okay, Ravenous Hydra is going to take a little bit to explain. Basically, it used to be a lot better. Then they made it Omnivamp, which made it too good. So then it became a lot worse. But unfortunately, the same champions who used to build it are still the only champions who build it now. It's just much weaker. So I wanted to show you guys right here. It used to give baseline 80 attack damage, 18% lifesteal, and the cleave on hit. It was built on champions like Camille, mostly just Camille, and now it's still mostly just built by Camille and sometimes Riven. So to be blunt, it went from being built on Camille to being built on Camille and Riven. But for Camille, it's weaker because it used to give 18 goddamn mother percent lifesteal. Now it gives 10%. Is that worth the ability haste? Some people would say yes. Some people would say, my god, it used to give 18% lifesteal with 80 flat damage that you didn't even need to stack? Those second people were right. It did used to give 80 damage that you didn't even need to stack and 18% lifesteal. It did used to do that. And now it gives 65 damage and you can stack it to 85. And you can, you get 10% lifesteal instead of 18%, but you get ability haste, which is good. It's not bad. 25 ability haste, that's good. But the people acting like this item is, oh my god, it used to suck. And no, dude, it was more niche for sure. I would agree it was more niche. But Camille healing 200 health late game every Q was pretty good. Pretty good. Now it's kind of just abused for really janky, unfun stuff. Titanic Hydra. Titanic Hydra, I think we can all agree, got nerfed. How much did it get nerfed? A lot. Basically, in 11.18, right, decided Colossus bonus attack damage changed to 2% bonus health from 1% maximum health. There is no way that any champion other than Scion had this be a buff. Titanic Hydra went from being a good item that lots of people built to that funny item that Urgot goes because the on hit is still total health damage, and Scion goes because he's goddamn Scion and it gives him like 200 damage, and Set goes because Set is crying in a corner going, but why? Why won't they let me have any viable items? It's not fair. Turbo Chem Tank. I was going to call it but I figured let's be professional and call it Chem Tank. Nobody make the joke. Nobody's allowed to joke. It's Turbo Chem Tank. Chem Tank. Did you guys remember this item is still in the game? Seriously. Raise your hand, put a comment, do something. Literally put a comment down below if you have made it this far in the video and you literally forgot this item was still in the game. Show of hands. Who did? Anyone? Come on. Don't lie to me. That's all I have to say. That's the entire joke. Blade of the blah blah blue blah king. Okay, so some of you might forget this, that Blade of the Ring King actually was nerfed for melee characters. Some of you forget that. It literally was. No, that's true. There have been so many goddamn nerfs to so many items, you literally forgot it was nerfed for melee. They buffed it on ranged champions from 8% to 9%, then increased the cooldown and reduced the damage. So melee characters got nerfed with it, ranged characters did not. Did you forget about that? You guys probably forgot about that. There have been so many goddamn nerfs to melee champions, you probably just thought to yourself like, oh shit, oh wow, really? That's crazy. They did that? I didn't remember that. That's nuts. Yep. And that's excluding all the other nerfs. I'm not even going to talk about any of the other nerfs. I'm just going to say, you guys, melee characters have been nerfed so much. Top lane has been nerfed so much that you literally forgot that this item got nerfed because you're so used to it. Riot came up and started pissing on your leg, and you were just like, you haven't been drinking enough water, have you, Riot? Your piss is a bit too much yellow this day. And they zipped up their pants, and you said, all right, see you same time tomorrow. Make sure to drink. ZZ Rot. I consider ZZ Rot a big nerf. Why do I consider ZZ Rot a big nerf? Because this item was built. It was. I don't care if it got removed. I don't care if it wasn't top tier. Here's the blunt truth. ZZ Rot built out of Raptors cloak. Raptors cloak was good for early game survivability. ZZ Rot gave, in a time with much less power creep, okay? In a time with much less power creep, it gave 55 armor, 55 magic resist, some health regen, movement speed, and the portal. Was it the best item? No. Was it built every game? No. Was it situational? Yes. Did people use it? Yes. Was it common? Not common, but it was built. Okay? And it was built because it was a dual armor magic resist item with movement speed that built out of an early game item and had utility. It was built by Darius. It was built by Alawi. It gave you tankiness, mobility, and a stronger early game through the ability to do that. It gave you good split pushing. It was built. And the problem is they just yoinked it out of the game. Did they give people a replacement? They tried. They added Gargoyle's Stone Plate, which I'll go into later. But the blunt matter of the fact is there was never again another armor and magic resist item that you could freely build that gave you mobility. So this unique item was removed from Juggernauts. And nothing more to say. An option was lost. An option which is sparingly, yet used in precision, an option was removed. Okay? That makes top lane weaker. I'm hoping I get across with all these changes, top lane keeps getting weaker. Weaker. Let me list them out for you guys. As we're nearing the end of this list, I hope you are taking count. Weaker. weaker. God, what am I even on at this point? It's everything combined. Up next, we have Frozen Heart. Do you guys even remember when they nerfed Frozen Heart? Some of these, be honest. Okay, once again, raise your hand if I'm catching you with nerfs. How many times have I said a nerf and you're like, holy shit, I forgot they even did that? Well, we have Frozen Heart. How did Frozen Heart get nerfed? It was being used as a very gold efficient item to go on champions like Aurelia and Jack so they could dive the 80 carries easier. What did Riot do? No! They increased its gold cost by 200, thereby reducing the amount of effectiveness it had. They increased its armor by 10, which would have been nice had they not reduced the flat damage reduction from 7 to 5. So, yep. Wit's End. Admit it, guys. Do you remember when Wit's End used to heal for 80 health a hit? Wait, it used to heal for 80 health a hit? Wait, when did it used to do? Well, that's right. Wit's End on melee characters used to heal a lot. How much? A lot. But that can't be right. No, it did. Oh, it did? Yes, it did. But did they give it any compensation for melee champions? No, they didn't. No compensation. None at all. Wow. Yup. That's right. Wit's End, when you were below half health, used to heal for 100% of its post-mitigation damage for melee champions. Ranged champions only got 33%. When they removed that, did they buff it on melee champions to compensate it? You know the answer. Be honest, you know the answer. Y'all know the answer, don't you? No, of course they didn't. And why would they? Why would they compensate melee champions for any nerf on anything they did ever, literally ever? So, much like when they nerfed Ravenous Hydra, melee champions had less healing options. Okay? Maw of Malmortius. Now, once again, I posit that everyone pays attention. Is Maw of Malmortius still good? Is it still buildable? Yes. Is it weaker? Yes. It's not about is it still buildable. Once again, most items in League could be weaker and they would still be built. That's true. You could nerf. The example I keep giving is Lord Dominik's. Lord Dominik's could lose 5 damage. You would build it. 5 more damage. You would build it. Do you get the point? Okay. Maw sees still some play, very sparingly, but that doesn't mean that it didn't get weaker. And when it gets weaker, that means the top laners who build it are weaker. I literally forgot to put Gargoyle Stoneplate in my list of nerfs. Yes, I assure you, chat, this nerf list actually should have been one bigger. Gargoyle Stoneplate. Do you guys remember when Gargoyle Stoneplate got nerfed? That one time it got nerfed. Do you guys remember that? You'd be wrong. Actually, you just lied to yourself because it was nerfed twice. Do you remember the nerfs? Do you remember both of them? Probably not. Probably not. You probably have just totally forgotten because you thought to yourself, wait, they nerfed Gargoyle? Wait, they nerfed it twice? Oh, yes, they did. I'm not even talking about old Gargoyle. I am talking about this version of Gargoyle was nerfed twice. And top lane items have been nerfed so many times, you literally forgot. That's right. Gargoyle Stoneblade, back in Season 12, had its shield ratio reduced from 100% bonus HP to 90%. Then, in Season 12, 12 patches later, it had its gold cost increased by 200. Yes, really. In Season 12, the season of literally fuck to death every bruiser or tank option to stay alive, in Season 12, they nerfed it twice. Do you notice I keep coming back to Season 12? Season 12 was literally right. Chat, I shit you not, okay? These people came in with hounds, okay? bloodhounds. They sniffed out every viable option for top laners to stay alive. They hunted them. They found their families. They flayed it alive. They displayed the skulls on their fences to scare off the other bruisers from ever staying alive. They were hunted, chat, slaughtered, treated like pigs. What was my last thing? Ah, yes, turret plates and dragon buffs. Turret plates were buffed, but that's a nerf. It was a buff, but that was a nerf. Do you get it? By making turret plates worth more gold, that makes top lane less able to impact other lanes. By making turret plates worth more gold, that means if you leave top lane, your opponent gets more gold, which means that you are now further behind. Top laners have become less and less capable of leaving their lane, because if they leave their lane, the opposing top laner can now kill the shit out of their plates and get a lead that you can't get back to. Now, for those of you wondering, well, Hashinshin, how bad could it really be? It's not like every top laner has a way to slaughter turrets, do they? It's not, well, yes, they do. I'm just, yeah, most top laners have a way to kill turrets. Yes, a few don't. Yes, a few can't do it. The grand majority can do turret damage, yes. Dragon buffs. This is my last thing here. Dragon buffs. Now, they have nerfed them back down since, but actually, I lied. They did not actually nerf them back down. They adjusted them slightly backwards, but they did not ever actually nerf them all the way down. Where is... Okay, so here's the turret plate buff. Where was the dragon change? Did I... Oh, no. Shoot. There was another thing that should have been on this list, chat. I'm not going to go find it. I've been here for an hour and a half. I'm not going to go find it. They buffed every single dragon in the game. When they went back and they nerfed them, they did not, I repeat, did not nerf them back to where they were before they buffed them. They're still stronger than they used to be. That means that, shockingly, this might surprise you, that top lane, which is the least capable lane of impacting the dragons, now frequently needs to play against an opponent that got 2 dragons for nothing. 2 dragons due to nothing they did, nothing they impacted, they got 2 dragons. And these dragons are now significantly more powerful than they used to be. Okay, so, with that said, this concludes the longest rant on League of Legends that has ever existed. The death by a million nerfs of top lane. The consistent reduction of top lane power with not enough compensation that has slowly but surely reduced top laners that feel very similar but yet are weaker in everything they do. They have less tenacity. They have less attack speed. They heal less when they kill someone. They heal less in the laning phase. They take longer to get their resistances. They have less tenacity. They take longer to get back to bone plating. They move slower. They do less damage. They heal for less. They don't have the option to get tankier. They don't have the option to slow. They teleport less. They have less movement speed. They have less healing early game. 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 They clear the waves more difficultly. They have less gold and XP because of the jungle. They have a weaker mythic. Another. They have weaker items over and 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 over again. They are less capable of impacting a map that is giving more rewards for impacting the map. I hope I make my point clear to everybody. Okay? So, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Make sure to leave a like. Make sure to leave a comment. And come back tomorrow for more content. Thank you, everybody.